More revelations on state capture are expected to be heard when the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture resumes in Parktown, Johannesburg this morning. Public Enterprises Minister Gordhan is expected to appear before the Commission to give his much-anticipated testimony. It's believed he will give details about his time as Finance Minister when he was first appointed in 2001 by the then-President Jacob Zuma. Last week, former Public Enterprises Minister Barbara Hogan concluded her testimony in which she detailed Zuma's alleged interference in the running of state-owned enterprises. Just over a week ago, Gordhan's sworn statement was leaked to the media where he confirmed to have met the Guptas. He's expected to unpack meetings with the controversial family. For more on the story, let's cross live to Mzwandile Mbeja, the SABC senior reporter. He's in Parktown in Johannesburg. A very good morning to you, Mzwai. Thank you so much for joining us. What can we expect to come out of today's proceedings?
A very good morning to you, Simpiwe. We expect Minister Gordhan to take the stand today. In fact, he's just walked in, but then walked out. He's already arrived, so I got a chance just to speak to him. But of course, off camera, he basically says he is in high spirits. He has no choice because this is the day where South Africans will be expecting or will be really watching with anticipation as to what is it that he is willing to share with the nation as it seeks to find answers to this phenomenon called state capture. So he will take the witness stand, Simpiwe, at 10 o'clock exactly, and we expect him really to detail the relations, rather the happenings during his tenure. He was appointed the Minister of Finance in 2009 until 2014. Currently, he's holding the position of Public Enterprises, and it will be very interesting, really, Simpiwe, to hear what he has to say with regards to 2009 and 2014, given that he was the Minister at Treasury. So should there be transactions that may have been illegal? So did he know about it, and then what did he do about it? So if there are any of those things. And of course, we expect him to clarify the nature of the relations that he has with the Guptas, if he does, because we know that on a few occasions he may have met this family. And why is it important? Because the Guptas, Simpiwe, as you know, are really at the center of all of this. They are being accused by a number of people as the people behind this phenomenon called state capture. So if he details that kind of relations, and of course the questions that would be asked, so would then shed actually more light as to what really happened. And of course, he served under former President Jacob Zuma as his finance minister, and then also served as his COGTA minister, and of course as his finance minister again. So how he was fired, he may perhaps also talk about that if he feels there was some sort of interference. You know, all those things are what we expect to hear. And given that Minister Gordhan has postponed his testimony about 2 times, it makes it even more interesting, and people are really in anticipation as to what exactly he will share with the nation.
And indeed, you rightly pointed it out that some of those who testified already did know about state capture, and the question is, what do they do about it, and why did they not point it out? And we saw last week the former Public Enterprises Minister Barbara Hogan concluding her testimony in which she detailed Zuma's alleged interference in the running of state-owned enterprises. Can we expect that Gordhan will name Zuma as well?
Especially because Simpiwe, he was the finance minister in 2009 until 2014, and of course the minister of local government, now known as COGTA, and that other brief stint as minister of finance. So it's possible, if you look at what has been happening. I mean, looking at the testimony of the former minister Nhlanhla implicating the former president in some of the interference issues that took place, and Barbara Hogan also doing the same. Perhaps it makes sense to then deduce that former Minister Gordhan will probably tell us something about the possible or the alleged interference. But until he says this, so we will sit here and speculate and really wait to hear the man, because it's just under an hour before he then talks to the nation directly. We can speculate, but the fact of the matter is that here is the hour and the moment for him to tell us exactly what happened during that tenure.
And the EFF is also expected to lodge a protest outside the venue wherein the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture is taking place. Now we see on the screen right now, BLF members are also protesting. Did you perhaps get a chance to ask them what their bone of contention is, or maybe have a chat with them?
Well, we haven't had a chat with them, but Simpiwe, it's common cause that the EFF and the BLF so are no friends of Pravin Gordhan. In fact, those two entities have been very vocal about Minister Gordhan to say he needs to step down. They accuse him of a number of things. They're saying he's manipulative. They're saying he's using state capture really to do whatever he wants. I mean, going as far as to say, the EFF going as far as to say the real president is Pravin Gordhan, because they are saying, so he is the man in charge. So you can imagine, so here is the minister now having the chance to speak here, and those people who have made it clear that they don't want him, is the opportunity for them as well to come here and demonstrate. It's interesting that BLF and EFF actually themselves, so they are on different ends, never mind that they are both strong on the issues of land, but they given their history, so they actually don't like each other themselves. But here is the common enemy that gets them together. So we know that EFF is going to be here, as they indicated, and then, of course, as you have said, BLF is already here. So, which really simply shows that there's a lot of interest in this. And if you talk about BLF, they've really been accusing him of being a pawn of what they call white monopoly capital. So you see, they really want to make a statement. They really want this State Capture Commission to speak about a number of things really that they are accusing him of. But as I said earlier, so it's just under an hour. All of that so will be revealed here.
All right, Mzwandile will certainly be chatting to you throughout the course of the day as that Commission of Inquiry gets underway. That was a reporter, Mzwandile Mbeja, outside the State Commission in Parktown in Johannesburg. And Criselda Lewis, our reporter, is also outside in Parktown, wherein the BLF members are also protesting, and we cross over there right now. Very good morning to you, Criselda. Thank you so much for joining us. You are outside the venue wherein the Commission is currently underway. What do you see? What can you tell us?
Well, we're just under an hour before the Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan testifies in the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture. The Black First, Land First, as well as the EFF have made it known that they will be picketing outside the Commission. Black First, Land First has already arrived here this morning. You recall, of course, about 2 weeks ago, the affidavit of the Public Enterprises Minister to this commission was leaked to the media, and in that 69-page affidavit, it was indicated that Pravin Gordhan did meet with the Gupta family. We were expecting him to be asked several questions about the contents of that meeting or meetings with the Gupta family. You'd know that the EFF has also said that they're going to report the minister to Parliament's Ethics Committee, and that they will also report him as well and want the public protector, Busisiwe Mkhwebane, to also investigate him. Let's chat now to Zanele Luana, who is with Black First, Land First. Thank you very much for your time, Zanele. If you could come stand at the side for us. Obviously, this morning it seems you're intensifying your call for the Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan to go.
As Black First, Land First, we have been very vocal about the corruption of Pravin Gordhan and him being captured in particular by white monopoly capital. And what we mean by that, in particular by the likes of Johan Rupert. You would remember that Pravin Gordhan ends up as the finance minister of this country after David van Rooyen was appointed by President Zuma at that time, after Johan Rupert terrorized the economy of this country, and as a result we lost about 500 billion from the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. So now we saw at that moment how Lutuli House officials of the ANC were summoned, including Trevor Manuel and Cyril Ramaphosa, by Johan Rupert, who owns and runs the economy of this country, to say that if you don't put Pravin Gordhan as the minister of this country, I am going to destroy the economy of this country. Because remember, Rupert has an interest in terms of the safeguarding of his businesses in this country, and therefore he needed to appoint someone who is not opposed to white monopoly capital. Interestingly enough, we know, this is public knowledge, that Pravin Gordhan, even as a member of parliament, as a finance minister at that time, and now as the Minister of Public Enterprises, he has shares in white monopoly capital businesses such as SPAR, such as the main banks in this country. And what we have been saying as Black First Land First is that whether he is the finance minister or the Minister of Public Enterprises, he is conflicted, because that means white monopoly capital that is implicated in wrongdoing, he is incapable of investigating it, because that means that would be tampering with his business interests and that of those who have captured him. I think it's also important to point out the hypocrisy of the media, I think, and those who are political figures, on how the news of Pravin Gordhan, who has met with the so-called controversial Gupta family, their ideals have completely switched now. So when it comes to Pravin Gordhan, you are no longer a criminal, right? When you meet with the Gupta family, such as what we have seen with Ntantanene, such as we have seen with the president of the country. Now, when it comes to Pravin Gordhan, because he is the man who pushes the agenda of white monopoly capital, he must be forgiven, and therefore he must be given enough room to explain to the nation on why he was at the compound. Well, the nation of this country, the media and political leaders have made it clear that it is a sin just to be seen with this family, and therefore you must go. But on this man, the ideals must change.
You'd obviously want to hear from him inside this commission exactly what the contents of those meetings with the Gupta family were about, or meeting, as it's now emerged in this affidavit to this commission. Are you saying that Pravin Gordhan should have long disclosed that he had met with the Gupta family? As you're saying, it's been perceived to be a sin to have met with the controversial Gupta family, any member of that family.
Yeah, I think it's important to remind the nation that, particularly during the tenure of President Zuma, when he was the president of the country, because of the agenda he stood for, which is radical economic transformation and land expropriation without compensation, and opening up opportunities that are going to benefit black people, his association with the Gupta family was used to demonize particularly leaders who stood for interests that would develop black people. So it was very fashionable to target leaders who stand for radical economic transformation, expose their association with the Gupta family so that you may push an agenda of regime change. But the truth of the matter is that no one in that cabinet, we argue, has not met with the Gupta family. But we see the tables shifting now, because finally white monopoly capital has Ramaphosa, who is their man, who has in fact met the Gupta family. But we see the emergence of gross hypocrisy, that those who stand with white monopoly capital, it doesn't matter if they have met with this family that has been projected in society as evil, as people who have looted the coffers of the state. But when it's Ramaphosa and the likes of Pravin, we must now be reasonable, whereas for a long time it was not tolerated. The bottom of the matter, I think, is that Pravin Gordhan is conflicted. Pravin Gordhan should not be in government. Pravin Gordhan should not have been allowed to be the finance minister, and hence the Minister of Public Enterprises today, because he is the Minister of Public Enterprises today, captured by the likes of Johan Rupert. It means under his leadership we are going to see the swift privatization of the state-owned enterprises in this country, such as we have seen with the South African Airways, as we have seen on how Eskom is being sabotaged and the agenda of the IPP is being pushed, and demonizing the agenda of nuclear agenda, which is way cheaper, by the way.
Well, many have said that Pravin Gordhan, including yourselves, is that he was an enabler of state capture. He was finance minister, of course, in that cabinet of the former president Jacob Zuma, under which it is argued at this point that massive looting of the state took place under his watch. So what will be the message of BLF going forward? He will detail, I'm sure he will be asked questions about what the contents of those meetings were about.
I think it's important to have this conversation around state capture and Pravin Gordhan. Remember, in the treasury, 4.3 billion disappeared with no consequences. And it's going to be interesting if whether this commission is going to focus on that. Remember, Pravin Gordhan has a daughter, Aisha, who is a beneficiary of tenders from as low as 10 million rand from the treasury. It is not there's no outrage, it is not a scandal because it is Pravin Gordhan. I think it's very important, particularly after people like Mzwanele Manyi, in fact, have appeared into this commission and they have provided their side of the story. It's very important to see how Pravin Gordhan is going to be treated. We already see through media reports that he is already planning to implicate people like Brian Molefe, and we all know that Brian Molefe are leaders in society, who was the CEO of Eskom in particular, who rescued us out of load shedding, and we are back at load shedding in this country. So we are going to see again how the commission is going to be used as a kangaroo court to demonize and punish those who stand for radical economic transformation, so that it can be free for all for the agents of white monopoly capital.
Zanele Luana, thank you very much for your time. Zanele Luana from Black First, Land First. We're also expecting the economic freedom fighters in the next few moments to also gather here. We're expecting the chairperson of the EFF in Gauteng, Mandisa Mashigo, to also be here. You would know, of course, that the EFF has said that they will report Pravin Gordhan to the public protector and urge her to investigate him. And we're also expecting some of those issues to also be raised with Parliament's Ethics Committee. You know that the EFF has also indicated that they'd asked the Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan as early as 2016 if he knew of any Treasury members who had met with the controversial Gupta family. To what the EFF says, Pravin Gordhan refused to answer. So we're expecting them to share the very same sentiments as Black First, Land First outside this commission that gets underway in just about 30 minutes now.
All right, Criselda, thank you so much. I'm going to let you go for now. We'll certainly be in touch with you throughout the course of the day as the Commission of Inquiry gets underway. That is reporter Criselda Lewis speaking to us outside from Parktown.